Ted, I definitely want to get your sense, because I was on a call earlier today with Dave Burkett, and I asked him the question, which call was worse? Was it the crazy, picking up a flag against Brendan Pettigrew and all that? Dave Burkett, I asked him what call was worse, that or the miscommunication regarding the tackle reporting eligible last year.
We actually made Jared sprint. So I would do sprint training with him once a week. I would actually do it with him. I'd run with him. So we topped off and we would hit at least 90% of his max velocity once a week. My reason for this, from a training perspective and from really pre-acclimation for the tissue, more so from a hamstring, hip flexor, quadricep, when you want to avoid some of those soft tissue injuries for a quarterback who's not hypermobile and they don't run a lot.
Welcome, everybody. We got another great show for you this evening. Thanks for tuning in. Look at the esteemed panel that we got today. Authors, former athletic trainers, former Detroit Lions players, super fans. I'm looking forward to breaking down one of the biggest weeks in Detroit Lions for the 2024 season. They're playing the Buffalo Bills, and many people are billing it as a potential Super Bowl preview, a battle of MVP candidates in Jared Goff and Josh Allen. Everyone's really excited for what's going to happen this weekend. Looking forward to getting everybody's opinion. But hopefully the fans this week behave themselves just a little bit better than they did last week, because unfortunately the news came on Wednesday that the fan that was part of the pregame festivities with the flag, unfortunately, got into it with the coach, maybe felt like a little bit too much part of the action. And unfortunately, when an NFL head coach calls you out and there's footage of you making gestures toward players and coaches, it's not going to be a good thing. But I'm curious, Ted, from your perspective, knowing that you've, talked to athletes, worked with them in terms of their interactions and seeing things, do you think the Lions should have revoked his season tickets? Because it kind of felt that was the way it was going to go.
Yeah, great question, John. First and foremost, I've been on hundreds and hundreds of sidelines in NFL games. So I've seen some crazy stuff happen. And Steph can attest to this, because as you go on, you're dealing with type A personalities, highly competitive individuals that are in effect kind of in a fight for their lives. It's not military, it's not battle to the death, but this is their livelihoods. And every coach and staff member on that sideline, we're going in there with a job to do. And not that it doesn't dismiss 70,000 people. They're paying a lot of money to come cheer. We want you to cheer. I love that energy from the stadium, but there's a line, and it's more of a line just as a human being. You don't cross and you don't do certain things. Matt LaFleur is a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. He's not going to go out of his way to cause drama. But if, it presents yourself, you're the head coach, you're going to defend your team. You're going to defend your players. That's what I would expect. And that's what I would want my coach or my teammates to do. So there's no place for it. I think the Lions handled it well, because you really don't want that to become the storyline, which it ultimately did this week.
Yeah, real interesting stuff. We have a former member of the Detroit Lions. You saw the highlights. You saw the kick return and the abilities that he possessed. And now we get his opinion too of kind of his interaction with Lions fans. Because maybe sometimes when there are leaner years, sometimes fans can be a little bit unruly. Stefan Logan's here. Tell us a little bit about your experience with Lions fans overall and what you think of what happened, because it did kind of feel like, the fan got a little bit too. And look, from my understanding, reporting on it, that when you're a season ticket member and you get the privilege of carrying the flag, you're told, hey, don't interact with the coaches and players. Just your job is to, hey, be part of something that's really important. That's the national anthem. So while, yes, this individual is going to get a lot of fan support, but at the same token, time and place and he made himself part of a story. And it's unfortunate, but I do think that many people were not surprised when they heard the news.
Well, I'll say this. When you go into a situation like that and you got a job to do as football players, we're going in as a team. There's a unit. We got a head coach that we protect. The head coach protect the players. So when you come in and you do something like that, that shows it's immature at the same time. And the coach, he handled it well. And I feel like the organization handled it as best they could, because you don't want to lose fans. But I think those fans sometimes they get misunderstood, because we are humans at the same time. We bleed, we cry, we have emotions, and when you do stuff like that, it makes you almost kind of come out of your shell, because you out there to play a football game. Y'all, like Ted said, y'all paid a lot of money to come out here and see us play. So we want to play football. We don't want to get into it with the fans. We don't, it'd be a lot of chatter. Fans can get out of hand, but I felt like the organization did as best they could. The whole thing, and sorry that fan didn't interact like that and he went through all this, but sometimes y'all got to understand, like, we are football players, we are humans, we do believe, like, okay, we out here to protect ourselves, our livelihood, and we want to play football. So they have to be careful when they come out there.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, if the timing is right, when you played for the Lions, you played for which coach did you play for?
Jim Schwartz.
Jim Schwartz. So you were there when the whole incident happened with Coach Harbaugh, correct? Give us a little perspective of that, because that was really unique too, because that was two coaches, I think, that were alphas. Yeah. And Coach Schwartz, the defensive guru, now that's with the Cleveland Indians, had some success as well with the Eagles. I do think Coach Schwartz probably going to get another opportunity in the future. What was that like from your perspective? You're like, man, our coach is ride or die as well. He's not taking he's not going to take anything from somebody else as well.
Man, just remembering back on that time, it was crazy, because first, you got two coaches that's coming to the middle of the field to shake hands, and then you got one coach walking away, then you got another coach upset, he's chasing out that guy, then the team, they see it and they kind of chasing, and you trying to make sure there's no fight breakout. But it was funny at the same time, because you seeing Coach Forrest chasing after this guy, and it was just like what's going on. But I'm just trying to remember all of it, because it was funny when we got in the locker room. We talked about it, and they addressed it a little bit, but at the same time, we got a little slack for it. Coach got some slack for it, but I just feel like you said, there's a time and place for all of this. So everybody got to handle themselves like gentlemen, just like we got to handle ourselves like professionals when we out there on the field. And then fans, and they get a little bit rude, and then now we looking in the stands and we talking to them instead of paying attention to what's going on. We too busy jarring with them. But that whole situation that with Coach Schwartz and Harbaugh, it was something that was like bound to happen, like a little brother, big brother. That was like, okay, I'm gonna get you back. So that situation was crazy, but that was a long time ago. We don't put that's behind us now. They both doing great at their respectable jobs and stuff like that. You got a head coach, you got a defensive guru. And, I look forward to seeing Coach Schwartz get another head coaching job, to be honest with you.
No doubt. Mark, what'd you think of it? Because you're a fan as well. Yeah. And I think you've been online as well, kind of seeing the reaction. Clearly the fans, kind of have made this individual somewhat of a folk hero already, just saying, hey, you were able to kind of get an NFL coach to acknowledge you. But at the same token, there does have to be repercussions. In my opinion, maybe down the road, he gets an opportunity to get his revocation suspended, or have an opportunity again down the road. But from what I hear, it's just his seats is now done, and he's got to get back in the waiting line if it back on the waiting list if it happens again. From Mark, your perspective, what do you think?
Yeah, that's what happened. It's the black and blue division, right? That's what you're going to kind of see. A little bit embarrassing though, when during the flag ceremony, you don't really want to see that. I'm not sure what really went down. I guess it was a throat slash towards LaFleur. LaFleur got fired up. It didn't really, and it started to escalate even more. It kind of looked like nobody really knew what was going on at the time. I think it's a little bit carried away, taking his season tickets away. Hopefully, like you said, that maybe down the road that maybe he can get them back somehow, or just somehow get within the good graces of the Lions organization again. It was just kind of funny to watch, like LaFleur was fired up. I've never seen LaFleur that mad before on the sidelines. I don't watch every Green Bay game, obviously, man, but he was very passionate. So the guy that did that, he must have really got under his skin. I just wish it wouldn't have escalated like it did, and I wish it would have got broken up a little bit quicker, because like we don't need that for part of the game. I get it. It's the black and blue division. We go after each other. We go after the Bears fans. We go after Minnesota fans, Green Bay fans. They come after us, But during the flag ceremony, I was just a little bit embarrassed at that point.
Yeah, everybody just got to mind their P's and Q's, especially time and place. It's not a situation, especially when you're warned beforehand regarding what's going to happen. And in one of those deals, it is unfortunate for the fan that it hit Prime Video and it hit different spots. Whenever NFL Network or the cameras catch you, it's just going to spread like wildfire, especially this day and age in social media. You have to be mindful when you're in an NFL stadium. There's cameras on you. Someone's watching. So you can't. You look at all the fights that happen, and you look at everything that happens in an NFL stadium. Typically, if it's not anything that's out of the realm of being normal, typically ends up going viral, and you don't want that. So you got to behave. You got to treat it as something that is a privilege to be a season ticket holder, and you got to watch what you say, especially to the athletes as well, because they may pretend like they don't hear it, but they're hearing exactly what you're saying. And some of the stuff that gets sent out there is pretty foul. And I think everybody can kind of take a little bit of a step back and be a little bit more gracious when they're out there. But with alcohol, that's the factor, is that the more we drink, the liquid courage just flies out there. But hopefully the Lions this week give their fans a lot to cheer about. Again, 11 wins in a row. This is crazy. I think all of us here are excited to be talking about a 12-1 football team that's taken on a Buffalo Bills squad. Everyone's excited about the potential of the Detroit Lions, but this is a big game, and this is one of those matchups I think everybody looks to for prime time, 425, prime slot for this contest on CBS. I'm curious everybody's thoughts about this game. I'm very much excited to see how these offenses, hopefully, I don't want to be greedy, but being that the Lions played on Thursday, I think everybody in Detroit had a blessing to sit down and watch other teams. And boy, if you had the privilege of watching Bills Rams, if that can happen again in Ford Field, the media, fans, former players, everybody will love it. Ted, I'm curious, how are you looking at this matchup? What are you excited to see in a rematch of what happened on Thanksgiving a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I love it, John, because I was one of those fans. I was watching that game in LA, and that was phenomenal. That's a win for football, for the sport of football, for fans. That was an incredible game. You have Josh Allen, and really, in my head, you have Jared Goff, who's a legit MVP candidate. I still don't think he gets enough love and respect in that realm. But Josh Allen, in all effect, could be the MVP. He's playing out of his mind. You look at what this guy's done. He came in the league with something around a 52% completion rating, and everyone got on him. There were people in the media saying this was his knock. And I remember it when we had this guy coming out and we were scouting him, that was his knock. It was completion percentage. It wasn't high enough. He wasn't consistent enough. And he heard all of it. He listened to it. He took notes. How Dion always says, we keep receipts. He did. He doesn't talk about it, but I know Josh Allen did that. And then he came back and improved literally every single season. And you look at what he's done this year specifically, what I would say is going to be the tough matchup, and this is what Aaron Glenn has to figure out. Josh has cut down on his turnovers. Whereas in years past, he's got that gunslinger type mentality. He'll throw the ball up. I don't think you're getting that as much this year. He's got something like 5 interceptions. He's really cut that down the previous 6 years. He's had over 100 turnovers or something crazy. So that worries me just from the Buffalo Bills standpoint. So we got to figure that out. AG has to figure that out, put some pressure on him in his ability to run, his ability to get off target and really just continue to prolong plays. That makes this player completely dangerous. I do think the Detroit Lions are going to show up. They're going to score points. You saw what the Rams did to them last week. They scored over 40 points, which is I didn't see that coming, especially with Sean McDermott. Their defense has been playing okay on that side of the ball. But, man, 2 juggernauts. I think this lives up to the billing. It 100% could be a Super Bowl preview. And what better way for the city of Detroit to celebrate, and then they can welcome him into Ford Field. This is going to be a great week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What do you think, Steph?
I like Detroit to win the game. I do. I'm wearing my Bucks hat because, I'm talking about Bucks. But I like Detroit to win this game simply because the two-headed monsters in the backfield. Mm-hmm. I like Sonic Boom. And I feel like those going to be the key to success, is running that ball a little bit, and Jameson out there on the outside. but I can't sleep on Buffalo. Buffalo got Josh Allen. They got Cook in the backfield. They got that boy Shakir that's leading the league in yak yards. So their defense is playing sound football. So I feel like Detroit just got to make sure they play sound football. And when they get in the red zone, they got to put 7 on the board instead of 3. I think that's where Detroit been lacking just a little bit. When they get in the red zone, as far as like from the 20 on in, that's where they kind of lack a little bit as far as getting the ball in the end zone. Scoring from outside, from the 40 on in, they do well. But that's why I think like that's the only thing that hurts Detroit. When they get down to like that red zone area, that's where they kind of struggle a little bit. When you watch a couple of games before that, they was putting up 3 points. I'm like, I need y'all to get 7, and I still cheer for Detroit. When they play somebody, I cheer for them. When they play in Miami, it's a little different because I'm a Miami kid, so I cheer for the Dolphins. But I feel like Detroit gonna have their way with this one.
Mark, you looking for a defensive rebound from the Detroit Lions? Because they did have a lot of players injured against the Packers. Looking at the initial injury report from Wednesday, it looks like some guys could potentially come back. So I do think that the defense could step up a little bit, maybe get a turnover or 2 from Josh Allen. But at the same token, I think a lot of people are wondering as well the level of involvement for Cook. Could this be a different kind of game than we're expecting? Could it be a grinded out kind of game? So, Mark, I'm curious your sense. Are you a little bit more confident in the defense with the guys coming back, or did the Packers game alarm you a little bit from what you saw?
Well, obviously the Packer game kind of alarmed me a little bit. With the makeshift defense that Aaron Glenn has out there, and Aaron Glenn's even came out and said he doesn't even know how much more that they can take if they keep losing guys. But in another sense, we're getting guys back. Like Pascal, hopefully can come back. Levi Wuzurike, those type of guys. We haven't had an interception in a while in that defense. I think Kirby's due. Brian Branch is due. Those guys are really looking forward to this matchup. So Superman's coming to town. That's basically what it is. Josh Allen has been superhuman, breaking records. What he's doing, I think he threw a touchdown pass, caught a touchdown pass, ran one in 2 weeks ago. He had 6 touchdowns alone last week. And they lost that football game. So I think with Josh Allen, you can't really stop him. Your best way, the thing to do is contain him. And Buffalo Bills don't give up a lot of sacks. That has a lot to do with him as well, too, avoiding those sacks, too, right? So he gets out of the pocket. He moves around. Aaron Glenn has come out in the past and said that he's not a guy that really likes to spy the quarterback. Mm-hmm. He just kind of, they just kind of just play a certain defense. With him, you're just going to have to try to contain him. You got to try to keep him inside as much as you can, have some linebacker play, get him, and just contain him. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think they're going to score on us. We're going to score on them. And like Stefan said, too, us running the football is going to be key. That's one thing that Buffalo does struggle a little bit on defense. You can run on them. And I think guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are going to have a day. And I will put our offense against any defense in the NFL anyways. And Buffalo does have a very good defense. Their secondary is very good. Matt Stafford and Puka and Cooper Kupp, they kind of exposed that a little bit last week, but all year they've been pretty solid. And I think we could score with them. But that's going to be one of those games. And I kind of said it last week when I was watching that Green Bay game. I predicted that Dan Campbell was going to do something crazy in that Green Bay game. And he did 2 things that was pretty, that's been going viral for a week now. I think, like Steph said too, settling for field goals is not going to help. So I expect Dan Campbell to go for it maybe when least not expected, and touchdowns is going to win this game, not just field goals.
No doubt. It's going to be a fun game, man. I think it could be one of those last possession games. So everyone buckle up, fasten your seatbelt. It's a heavyweight matchup, and it's one of those deals where I do think the Lions, what's wild is that typically when you see a 12-1 team, they got the division wrapped up. They got their seating pretty much in a good spot. The Lions are 12-1. They got a couple teams neck and neck on their heels right behind them, and things are not wrapped up. So in a sense, this is great because it gives the Lions even more added motivation to continue to grind and win. And I'm just thankful that the Lions had the extra couple days to be able to get after it and rest up get a couple more guys healthy. And I think the Bills are going to clearly get your attention because, yeah, if you don't play well, you're going to be embarrassed. And, man, I just think that having this game at Ford Field, definitely an advantage. The crowd noise will make things difficult. But and like I've said in previous podcasts, the offense can carry this football team. And with just like Steph said, that this offense has done and executed at a high level, but still can do more in the red zone, avoiding penalties, being more efficient, scoring those touchdowns. That's just an amazing thing to be able to see and to have as a football team that's 12-1 that can get better in so many areas, and that's going to get and have added players come back. So that's going to be a fun watch. So don't miss it this Sunday. But moving forward, we have an author in our midst. And today, applause for Ted Rath. His book debuts today. You can go find it, probably likely Amazon, all the great places. Go to the bookstore. If you're in Macomb County, here in Michigan, a lot of great bookstores. And it'll be posted in the chat as well. So, Ted, tell us about the book. Tell us about the process, where people can get it, what's it about. And I can't wait to hear about it because I know you put a lot of time and effort into it.
No, I appreciate it, John, and it's cool. This is the cover. Amazon's the easiest place. We're hitting bestseller status already, so we're top of the new releases in a bunch of categories. Lions fans will recognize a couple of these names. You got Ndamukong Suh, we got Calvin Johnson, wrote testimonials, and then a bunch of other guys, Aaron Donald, John Gordon, an author, some other guys on there. But I pull on some of the stories. Basic premise of this book. It's a personal development book. It's for anyone, not just but anyone that works in any industry who's interested in becoming a better, more productive version of themselves. These are lessons that I've seen personally help first ballot Hall of Famers, potential Hall of Fame coaches, general managers, owners, the owners I've gotten to know. I've seen this applied in businesses like the Bill Fords of the world, Bill Ford Jr., who runs Ford Motor Company. There's things that I've learned from Bill and other people that I kind of pull on from a story perspective to tie into some of these things. And then at the end of each chapter, just easy to apply methods that you can do, defining urgency in your life. How do we go through life? Well, if you're a person, you want to get up and establish better routines in your day. Do you hit snooze multiple times? Then I challenge you, create the environment that's going to allow you to lead to a more successful pattern and habit. So create the environment where you put your phone 10 feet away, where you can't just lean over and hit snooze. And then I call this the toe test. This is another thing I wrote about. Put your feet on the ground as fast as humanly possible in the morning. That's your first win of the day. Don't allow yourself to hit snooze. That's your first loss of the day. We're all competitive people. We're talking about football. We're talking about the NFL, the highest of the high, the highest level you can get to. And these are things that I've seen literally some of the best ever to do what they do and play the positions that they play, do these simple but effective methods, and they apply them to their lives consistently. So I'm excited. We've gotten great feedback, but obviously, jump on Amazon, buy it. Great time stocking stuffers for the Christmas season. But I appreciate your guys' support. I'm really excited about it.
Man, Beyond Comfort, mastering a growth mindset with excellence through urgency. And I think it's great too when you look at it from the perspective of how people can just take small steps in their lives daily to improve. And we can talk about it with athletes. You can talk about it with anything that you're trying to accomplish, whether it be weight loss, relationships, broadcasting, trying to improve yourself, that opportunities like that. And definitely, Ted, you've earned my purchase there, because I enjoy reading stuff like that, podcasts like that as well, because you look at it from the perspective of someone like yourself who's had success. I always say that success, a lot of people share the secrets of success, and a lot of mentors have told me success leaves clues. Mm-hmm. And there's so much information out there that people can gather to be able to improve their lives. And even if you are successful, the most successful people talk to other successful people to find nuggets of information. And just like you said, hey, hit the ground running every single day. And that can help you. And in my line of work outside of sports, it's the same thing. It's about your mindset. That's the key, is to be able to not only talk about it, but be about it. It's about the action. And that's, I think, for Steph as well, he can relate, Mark, you too, that you realize that we all can say, hey, I want to do this. I want to try this. Great. But what are you going to do about it? And that's the number one thing I always talk to people about when they're sharing feelings and sharing stuff is, okay, we have an understanding of how you're feeling and processing something, but what are you going to do about it? And once they start changing their mindset a little bit and being solution focused and action driven, then you can start to see change. So definitely check out the book, and the link is in the chat. Don't miss out, because like I said, success leaves clues. Beyond comfort, mastering a growth mindset. All right, now in the final part of our show, this, NFC for the Detroit Lions is going to be a dogfight. Clearly, they're the number one seed, but they got teams behind them that can definitely cause problems. So each one of us is going to take a division, and we'll start this time with Steph, because he's got a division that, look, we never wish injuries on teams, but I'll say this: the Detroit Lions have one loss, and it's to the Bucks. And I had Baker Mayfield on my fantasy team on the bench for a good half part of the season, and then he was outperforming CJ Stroud week in, week out, week in, week out. And I'm like, darn it, I got to start this Baker Mayfield. This man is in an offense that suits him like a glove. And even though, unfortunately, Evans and Godwin go down with injury, it has caused a bump in the road for the Buccaneers. But at the same token, the South presents some challenges. So Steph, tell us a little bit about the NFC South. Where are the challenges? What's going on? Who could potentially be an issue for the Lions?
Well, right now, the Atlanta's leading division. They 4-1. The Bucks, they 2-2 in the division. But I just feel like the Bucks are a sleeper team in the NFL, period. I picked them last year. I was never a Baker Mayfield fan until he stopped doing those commercials. Then once he stopped doing those commercials, he focused in and he driven that football team to hell and back. When Tom Brady retired, Baker Mayfield, he came in and he been a gunslinger, and he got two vets on the outside. He got Evans and he got Godwin. Godwin went down with a terrible injury, which it was just bad. And then Evans, he had got hurt. But that did not stop that train from smoking. Them boys still was doing what they needed to do. The defense is playing well. That running back they got back there, White, is doing an excellent job. I just feel like the Bucks is just a sleeper team in the NFL, period. The Falcons, they up and down. You got Kirk Cousins. He gonna throw you some touchdowns, but he sure gonna throw you some interceptions too. And that's one thing I know about him. He gonna throw some picks. So if that defense plays sound football, and I mean just stay after the quarterback, apply pressure to Kirk Cousins, I feel like they'll have success in that division, and I think they'll be a sleeper. They might not win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying they're gonna be a sleeper for the NFC South.
Okay, real fast, got to ask you a little bit about the Falcons, because there's a talk. I went to Michigan State, so have a lot of allegiance and fondness for Kirk Cousins, but the turnovers are really high, and it stinks because you have a football team that has potential that you see is a football team that maybe is just underachieving. You know what I'm saying? And part of the problem is the quarterback is turning the football over too much. You look at it from your perspective. I'm curious your opinion. It's a football team that's 6-7. You probably are not going to go to Penix Jr., but you have him there. What's the mindset you think of the Falcons right now when you realize part of the issue is one of your captains and leaders in Kirk Cousins turning the football over far too often?
I'll say, let's see. Right now they winning the division, so they got a very, very good chance of making the playoffs. So that's one thing. Penix is sitting on the sideline. He's ready to get in. He's motivated. He's ready to go. But is it the right time to put that young guy in to try to change the dynamic of the football game or that team? Right now, it's like a 50-50 chance right now. But Kirk Cousins, as long as he's been in the league, I think, 12 years, he's only been to the playoff one time. But right now, you don't want to throw that young quarterback in an important role right now, because that can hurt the team. You got Bijan Robinson, a young kid, man. That young kid is balling, man. I ain't gonna lie. The running backs has come back this year, and I'm gonna give a whole lot of credit to Saquon and Derrick Henry. Them boys switched teams and they've been doing great. I mean, we got a guy that they talking about for the MVP, but Bijan Robinson is doing an excellent job. Kirk Cousins, they gotta slow down on passing the ball. Kirk Cousins throwing the ball, 30 plus, 40 plus passes a game. That's just too many. They got to lean on that run game a little bit. They got Mooney as the number one. They got the other receiver that's a returner at the same time. I just feel like they need to take the ball out of his hands a little bit and run the ball a little bit more Then that way, that will cut down on some of the turnovers because the defense is playing sound football, but the defense is on the field too long with all the interceptions. So I think that's what's hurting them because Kirk Cousins is throwing, they passing the ball too much and they're not leaning on the run. Lean on the run a little bit, set up the play action. That way linebackers start coming down. You can get the ball across the middle, you get the ball on the top, you get the ball on the outside. So I just feel like they need to take a little bit of that passing up out of there and run the ball a little bit more. They got a strong running back. Let him take on some of these challenges.
All right. Now look, this is the funny part because clearly the East is dominated by one team, but you have some wild headlines coming out of the NFC East with the Giants. You realize fans are frustrated. They're paying to have messages sent to the Giants ownership like, hey, this is not acceptable. And there's angst. It's unfortunate. They're running with Drew Lock at the moment. And so clearly there's struggles. And look, again, we don't want to laugh at anyone's misfortune, but man, the Cowboys and what happened on Monday Night Football, you feel for Amani Oruwariye, but you block a punt and you have a chance for success, and special teams blunder cost the Cowboys. And to see Jerry Jones, I don't know if he has any hair left based on all the craziness that's happened. So there's chaos there as well. The Commanders, clearly when they hired away Quinn, bottom line, they put together a coaching staff that is going to do some things, and they're going to potentially, maybe not this year, be a legitimate threat. Yeah. But I think a team to watch. Jot down the Commanders. Yeah. Tell us, Mark, about what you're seeing from the East. What the heck's going on in that division? Because clearly it's a one-team race, but a lot of the teams under the Commanders are really in some peril at the moment.
I think I'm going to take the East, John, so I'll jump in here.
How about that, Ted?
You hit it on the head. The biggest threat to the Lions right now is the Philadelphia Eagles. And you look at what Saquon Barkley has been able to do. Steph touched on it. The running backs are back. And a big part of it is because this guy's an MVP candidate, and he's earned it. He's earned every bit of that discussion in that conversation. You look at how the offensive line is playing, the skilled receivers that they have on offense, and their defense. You see what Vic Fangio has done and what a difference that 1 year makes because he's got those guys humming. They have a pass rush. It's a dangerous team. This is a team that matches up well. I've talked about it a couple times on previous episodes. They're built very similar to the Detroit Lions. You build them from the front. You build the offensive line, you build the defensive line, and you stack those positions, and then you get the skill positions around there. And obviously it hinges on the quarterback play. So the thing that could sidetrack them is an injury. If they do lose a Saquon, if their record without a guy like Lane Johnson dramatically shifts. So you look at those things and those components, but they have this division easily in hand. You look at them to host a playoff game most likely. The Washington Commanders are an interesting one because I look at this. I agree with you, John. I think they're a team to watch. They're a team to watch not just next year, but I think if they do sneak into the playoffs, if this becomes a wild card team, depending on what else happens around the NFC, I think they're a team that could, make some noise, potentially win that wild card round because you look at the quarterback, you look at a Jane Daniels, you look at how he's played, streaky when he's on, but you look at the defense and the culture that Dan Quinn he's really built fast, and you see how fast that changes. He has that team believing. He's got the defense playing. They're coming after the football. They can create turnovers, and you hit it. They have built a tremendous staff. I know a lot of people on that staff. It's the Cliff Kingsburys of the world. They have Brian Johnson. They got Bobby Johnson, the O-line coach. They have some of these pieces, and they have really good defensive coaches as well, and they've built this culture really well. And then you hit on the other ones. The Giants are an absolute dumpster fire. I don't even know if it was a fan. It might have been a player in the locker room that paid for that play to fly around, John. They're making jokes in New York. So and I do feel, I know it's easy to hate the Cowboys. I know some guys on that staff too. I know their special teams coach, John Fossil, Bones, we call him. I feel so bad for him, but same thing. They're a dumpster fire too. We'll see what happens. They have a coach that's on a lame duck deal. You'll see what the hell, maybe that's a Ben Johnson job next year. You look at some of those things that could pop up, but I do look at Philly, barring no injuries, they're going to be a tough team that Detroit's going to have to contend with, and the NFC is going to have to make sure that they're ready and prepared for.
Yeah, Ted and Steph, I do want to get your opinion before we go to the West. There's some noise surrounding the Eagles. You realize they're winning games. You realize that Nick Sirianni is a coach that, people talk about and they examine what's going on with the offense and defense. But coming out of their last performance, people were talking about the Eagles offense because you have A.J. Brown and people were reading his nonverbals, and he was kind of direct. And he said, hey, what's kind of going on with the passing attack? And he's like, it's just not where it needs to be. And you realize, okay, the pressure on Jalen Hurts is immense.
Mhm.
And that's a football team that's playing in a town that is very much rabid. And it's like all or nothing. They're legitimate contenders for the Lions. So I'm curious, when you get noise, when you get a situation in which your team is winning, but there's a facet of the game that, these wide receivers like their touches. They like the football a certain kind of way. A.J. Brown is a guy that potentially is going to stand in front of the media and say some things. People are reading everything when they see him and Devontae Smith sitting on the bench. Talk about a little bit the noise. Do you think that can be too much for the Eagles? Do you both think that could be something that cripples them? Because look, for Lions fans, anything at all that can be a detriment to the Eagles, we're all about.
Steph, go ahead. You jump in first.
I remember last year they had the same issue. Brown started getting a little issue on the sideline, and him and Jalen Hurts got into it, and they spiraled downhill after that. I think you have to keep your emotions in control. You got to keep your emotions in check. Right now, y'all playing winning football. Y'all the number 1 seed in the NFL right now. Besides, y'all got a running game. Y'all got Saquon Barkley has come over there from the Giants, and he has, just a whole new player now. I mean, he at first when he was with the Giants, he was struggling. That team was, like you said, a dumpster fire. They was not doing well. Now he done came over there to the Eagles, and he has open eyes. And like I said, the running backs are back now. Them guys going to start getting paid. So now I think Brown and Smith, you got to just hold on. Your time is coming. Y'all still young. The football team is young. Jalen Hurts is he's still learning. People got to understand, like, it's not like he's been in the NFL for 10 years. He's still learning the game. And Saquon is running that ball, and he's taking pressure off of the offensive line. He's taking pressure off of Jalen Hurts. So when it's time for y'all to go with that play action, Brown and Smith, I tell you this, when it do happen, y'all better make sure y'all be ready and catch everything that comes y'all way.
Yeah, Steph, you made some good points too. And there's another guy in the fold that we haven't even mentioned yet that and I know really well, Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore's a good friend. He was a player in Detroit. He backed up Matthew Stafford. He's been a coach for a long time now. We interviewed him for the head job before we hired Nick. I was on that interview committee at Mr. Laurie's house. We interviewed Kellen. I mean, Kellen is a legit head coaching candidate. He probably gets one this year if they continue winning. So you look at that. Kellen is a very creative play caller. He knows what he has to do. And to Steph's point, when he does start to marry some of that play action, start to get Jalen moving around, because we talk about Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts is a legit threat with his feet too. I mean, this kid's athletic. And you talk about the pressure on him. I think what people have to realize too, when we acquired A.J. Brown, it was a big draft day trade, if you guys remember, from a couple of years ago. And A.J. and Jalen are very good friends. They were friends prior to this through the college recruiting process. They've stayed tight. They've stayed connected. So you're looking at what, in effect, people have back and forth, especially close friends. Who do you argue with the most? Your family and your close friends, usually. So you look at that. I think that's a component of it too. But you also just look at, this is a champagne problem type of thing. There's so many talented players on that side of the ball. They built a great roster. We're not just talking about Smitty, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon, but they have one of the most underrated tight ends. He's been injured. He's been banged up. Dallas Goedert. When Dallas Goedert's in there, he's every bit as effective as a George Kittle of the world and some of those other guys that are playing tremendous football. So you look at this, that's a lot of people to spread the ball around. Once again, champagne problems. But yeah, sometimes a little bit of drama comes with that. So I think you have to keep that. I love what Steph said there, though. You just continue, you build, you connect, you try to get the team together. And that's what Nick Sirianni, I guarantee, is working on incredibly hard right now. You just don't let that splinter. Don't let it fester. Keep everyone tight. Keep that outside noise, especially in a city like Philadelphia, outside. Keep it exactly that, outside. Don't let it penetrate that building.
No doubt. Now, Steph has to leave us. Any parting shots you want to say about the Detroit Lions, their Super Bowl chances? You going to go to New Orleans and be part of the crowd if they're there?
Hey, I'm cheering for them, man. I really want to see Detroit go to that Super Bowl, man. I'm not going to lie. I think I know they haven't been to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they're the only franchise that haven't been. I don't even know. But I do want to see those boys in the Super Bowl. Man, I'm going to talk to Calvin. I'm going to talk to Nate. I'm letting y'all know right now, if they do make it to the Super Bowl, y'all better get them flights and get us out there, because we going. I just want to say that right there, because we all, like they say, alumni, but we play for Detroit. But at the same time, man, y'all fans, y'all doing a great job, man. Thank y'all for having me on the show. Hey, I love to see Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl, man. Y'all keep it rolling.
No doubt about it. Awesome. Now, when you look at the West, clearly, you look at the NFC West, you got two teams that, have recent memory and history with the Lions. The Seahawks and the Rams are doing some things. And while they're not, at double-digit wins yet, clearly they have some issues that they're still trying to work through. Geno Smith right now with the Seahawks at the top of the division. You got a new head coach. The team that I don't want to face again, because you saw what happened against the Rams. You saw that there's a lot of energy, a lot of emotion that's in that kind of contest. And you saw now you're seeing a Rams team that is gaining momentum. And with Matthew Stafford, and I got lucky and got Stafford in a fantasy game this week and paired him. I have Puka Nacua, and boy, was that a festive and fun opportunity to see the scoring output that produced. But Mark, tell us about the West, and would you be concerned again if it's between the Seahawks and Rams? Do you have a preference about who to face in the postseason?
Well, to kind of get that out of the way about like a preference, I'm telling you right now, I don't want to see Matt Stafford again. I don't want to see the Rams. I think they're coming in hot a little bit right there. I think Sean McVay is a phenomenal head coach. If you look at the NFC West altogether, though, man, they got like 1 or 2 games for all four of these teams that are deciding the division right now. And the Rams do scare me the most. I'm a big Stafford fan. He's had a couple shots to beat Goff. I think he beat him the first year. I think in 2021, they had a matchup in LA, and Stafford won that one. From there on, it's been Goff. But just the way that Rams team is playing right now, they're coming in hot. It's a team I don't really want to face. Now, Seattle, they're kind of doing the same thing. They're playing really good football. Geno's not really lighting up the sky at quarterback, but they run the ball really well. Zach Charbonnet came in last week for Kenneth Walker and ran like a man possessed. If you had him in fantasy, which I did, and I had him on my bench, I was pretty ticked off, man, with 40-something points that he had. But they don't miss a beat. They don't miss a beat with Zach Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker. So keep an eye on that. And they're playing really good defense. So I think Seattle is eventually going to win that division. I got them winning the next 3 out of 4 games, probably going on 11-6. But just don't count out those Rams. They're coming in hot. I got them winning the next 2 or 3 games too as well. I think they probably could squeak into a wild card. It's probably going to be between them and I think the Washington Commanders. And I'm just going to make it a 2-man race. I think Arizona's going to lose a few more games. San Fran is a team that is getting healthy again, though. They were playing pretty well last week, but I don't really think they're, I think they're going to lose tomorrow night versus the Rams. I think that's a big, big game. Well, obviously it's a big, big game coming down the stretch. That's a great Thursday night matchup to watch that game. And I have the 49ers losing to Detroit Lions too. So I got them going 2 for 2. So I'm making this a 2-man race between the Seahawks and the Rams. And I think the Seahawks are going to squeak in, but I think the Rams could get a wild card over the Commanders.
Okay. And you look at it from the perspective of the Detroit Lions heading into the postseason now. It's I think that what Dan Campbell said today was pretty telling in that for this football team, they're trying to strengthen their sword, which is, hey, focus on what we do well and improve that, get healthy, and continue to try and peak. And this is now the stretch. You got the Bills, you got the Bears, the Niners, and Vikings. It's a tough stretch. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious how this football team is going to perform and execute over the next month. And you look at the matchup, I think it's key. I know a lot of people are talking about seeding and things like that. Do you think, and we'll look at it from the perspective of the Detroit Lions, the number 1 seed is super important. I'm curious, after I wrap up the North, would you be concerned if the Lions did not get the number 1 seed? Because they've shown they're a good road team. For the Lions, it's wild because they play in the best division in all of football. You got the Detroit Lions sitting at 12-1, and that's still not enough to clinch the division. You got the Vikings, who you're going to play in the season finale at 11-2. They keep winning. And Dan Campbell's been asked now a couple times. He's been asked, like, okay, what's it mean that you're playing in a division with an 11-2 Vikings team and a 9-4 Packers team? And he's like, this is great. We're assuming they're not going to lose. Yep. So it forces the Lions to focus. So I do think that just based on how things are. I'm a little bit more concerned, me personally, about the Packers than the Vikings. But man, their performance with Justin Jefferson and Addison, the question mark has always been Sam Darnold, but that football team just keeps winning. And it's sometimes, a football team just faces another team that just has their number. I think the Vikings and Lions are a situation in which the Lions can potentially take advantage of weaknesses of the Vikings. The Packers, you realize now there's animosity, there's like trash talking going on back and forth. You realize too, which I thought was a little bit, telling. I believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown said that he'd rather play the Vikings in the postseason than the Packers. So you got the Vikings sitting at right now 2-1 in the division, Packers 1-3, and the Bears are 4-9. With the Bears, the talk has been in general, when they decide to move on and clean house, are they going to pinch anybody from the Lions moving forward? But the Lions are the class of the division, and they're working towards the number 1 seed. And I do think it's very paramount that I think a lot of people would have a lot more ease that, hey, if the Lions got the number 1 seed and everybody came to Detroit, their pathway to the Super Bowl is much better. What do you guys think? And it's just one of those deals where, number 1 seed is very important, I think, especially for this Lions team with where they're at injury-wise.
Yeah, you hit the key point right there, John, the injuries. I know for a fact that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell's blood pressure will go down significantly if you say you clinch the number 1 seed, because it gives them time. The gift of time in the NFL when you're entering the playoffs and postseason play is probably the most important thing that you can get, because you need to have all your key players ready and available and feeling good going into that first playoff game. So when you get that bonus week, that is so critical. It's so huge. And then the other fact of it, if you put them in a 2 seed and they have to travel to Philadelphia in the cold in January and win a playoff game, could be snowing, you could have, negative degrees. All those things are going to impact the ability of Jared to throw the football, of everyone. Really, it's not fun just to play in the cold. There's players and there's teams that do it much better. Detroit has not had to do that as often this year, so that would concern me a little bit. And I think you just look at Ford Field, it's such a tough place to play. That home field advantage is real. I mean, that is a legitimate factor right now for that team. So anybody that has to go into Ford Field, good luck, because you're going to have to try to get the silent countdown. You're going to have to try to find ways to make that game competitive for you. I think that number 1 seed is huge. Doesn't mean that they can't make it to the Super Bowl without it. No, but they have everything in their control. Your exact point right there, John. Jim Caldwell actually always talked about this. He called it productive paranoia. It comes from an author named Jim Collins. Jim Collins talks about productive paranoia. If you know someone's right on your ass and you can't afford to lose one game, you can't afford to make mistakes, then you're going to focus in even harder. And you don't think Dan Campbell is beating that down the throats of every member on that team? So you look at that, I think that's actually an advantage right now. Continue to sharpen your sword, continue to work on the things that you know you have to. And I think they're doing that right now, but they need that 1 seed if they expect to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that 1 seed I think is humongous. That like we talk about injuries, and I think it's going to come down to that. And like Ted said it, he goes, the blood pressure will go lower. When we got some of these guys coming back, and you got that 1 seed locked up, you got more rest. I think that's very key to this football team. And 12-1, we still haven't locked up the division. It's crazy. The Vikings won't go away. The Packers, the Packers are kind of, we're kind of separating from them right now. I'm more concerned about the Minnesota Vikings myself. I never thought that Sam Darnold would be doing what he's doing. I think a lot of people can share that same sentiment. I'm shocked by it. Like the weapons are there in Minnesota with Jefferson and Addison, a good running game, a great old line. Aaron Jones, all those guys, Hawkinson, like now healthy. That team I think concerns me the most. I say in the North, obviously, and then the Philadelphia Eagles, man. I just, I think I would not want to go to Philadelphia, and I know Jared Goff doesn't want to go to Philadelphia, and that whole Lions squad doesn't want to go to Philadelphia. So I think it's very important to lock up that 1 seed, and if they don't, I'm not saying like Ted said that that we don't have a shot. I think we are legitimate Super Bowl contenders, 100%. But going to Philly, I think, would be a problem.
Yes, sir. All right, we're going to finish this off. Ted has some powerful, impactful words he wants to share with the audience. Again, it's Lions and Bills, heavyweight showdown this Sunday. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate everybody that listened and commented. Definitely feel free to leave comments for everybody here after the fact and ask any questions as well. And hopefully Darcy will answer them. Ted, what you got for us?
Well, once again, guys, I'm going to start with a question. So what would you be willing to add and subtract from your life if you could guarantee getting closer to those goals? Whatever goals. This could be something extravagant. It could be, I have a goal to write a book. It could be a goal, I want to win a Super Bowl. It could be, I want that next job promotion. Whatever you have in your life, what are you willing to edit in and edit out? This is a story. Kobe Bryant taught me this. I was at Alabama. I was helping the team when Nick Saban was still there go over their performance-related stuff because they had a rash of injuries. So I flew down there right after Kobe died. They showed a video. Kobe was talking to the team a year prior. So I got to sit in with the Alabama football team, watch this amazing Q&A with Kobe Bryant, and he talked about one thing. A young freshman raised his hand and said, how'd you become the greatest ever? He said, I edited my life. I edited out the unnecessary shit that I knew I didn't need. The people who weren't good for me, the people that I knew weren't going to help me become the greatest ever, I edited them out. I sent them out of my life. And then I edited in the things that I knew I needed to do, the habits, the daily habits, the environment that I knew would create me as one of the best ever to play this game. So I started practicing 3 times in the offseason because I knew my competition was only doing it twice. Those daily habits, those daily deposits led to a Hall of Fame career, potentially one of the best ever. So my question is this: do your daily habits align with your future goals? If not, you better put some urgency into your step and you better fix them. Edit your life.